Global National with Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin with breaking news tonight from Ethiopia. Global News has confirmed a group of volunteers and staff with the Alberta-based charity Canadian Humanitarian is being detained in Ethiopia. Liam Nixon is tracking this Global News exclusive from our Lethbridge newsroom tonight. Liam?
Yes, Robin, Global Affairs is aware and has consular officials on the ground now working to ensure the well-being of the 13 detainees. Now, originally there were 18 Canadians being held, but Global News has confirmed that 5 were released on Friday. Canadian humanitarian spokesperson Justin Steed says there are now those 13 detainees, 3 staff members, and 10 volunteers, and they're being held at a police station in the city of Gondar, 600 kilometers north of the capital, Addis Ababa. 2 Ethiopian staff are also currently being held. Steed says the group is being investigated on allegations they were accused of practicing medicine without permission and had dispensed expired medication. Now, in a statement issued to Global News, Steed says, in part, just like all of our trips, our team and organization followed all necessary steps and protocols to ensure our group had all permits needed to provide medical support and care while in Ethiopia. While we cannot comment on the specifics of the expiry of the medication, we can say with confidence that all medicine and care offered by our team was safe. It goes on to say, in collaboration with Global Affairs Canada and the Canadian Embassy in Ethiopia, we are working hard to resolve this as quickly as possible, ensure the fair and humanitarian treatment of our team in accordance with internationally recognized laws, and expedite their safe return to Canada. Canadian Humanitarian is a non-political organization that has sent hundreds of volunteers to Ethiopia over the last 15 years. Steed says the organization does not engage in any activity outside of their humanitarian efforts. And this is actually a long weekend in Ethiopia, so the detainees aren't expected to be back in court until at least Tuesday. Robin?
Global's Liam Nixon in Lethbridge, Alberta. Let's bring in our Ottawa Bureau Chief, Mercedes Stevenson. Mercedes, what are your government sources saying about this case?
Well, Robin, just 2 weeks after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau returned home from a warm and fuzzy visit with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, these Canadians find themselves detained. And tonight, the Canadian government is confirming they are aware of the detention, although they wouldn't give us a lot of details because there are privacy rules. They did say that the Canadians who have been detained are receiving full consular access. We also talked to and received a statement from Rob Oliphant. He's the Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, which means it's his job in Justin Trudeau's government to help Canadians who are in trouble overseas. He said something interesting in addition to confirming that they were aware of the Canadians' detention and that they are getting access to and help from the embassy. He said thus far the Ethiopian government has been open and cooperative. So that may give some hope to those who are concerned about the status of these Canadians. We also spoke with an international affairs expert who has worked with UNICEF in the past as well as other large international organizations about the use of expired medications and whether that would be highly unusual. Here's what he had to say.
I consider Ethiopia one of the more developed African nations, and I understand that it had to do with them not being properly registered, but also the factor was using expired pharmaceuticals. I can tell you that from working with UNICEF and for a short while for WHO, the World Health Organization, I have seen actually expired medication used quite widely, but in very remote areas.
Now, Robin, that recent visit from Prime Minister Trudeau may be helpful in this situation. The Ethiopian and Canadian governments agreed that they wanted to do more trade together and that Canada wanted to do more to help Ethiopia. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia is Abiy Ahmed. He is seen as a progressive who has tried to move the country away from its past with human rights abuses. In fact, while it is still illegal to be gay in Ethiopia, he has been moving forward so much so that he received the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts on international security last year. That relationship may help here. Here's what our expert had to say about where things stand between Canada and Ethiopia.
Relations between Canada and Ethiopia are very good. Canada has quite a big presence there in a number of ways, not only diplomatically, but also in terms of trade and investment. So I think it should be fairly smooth process. There are a lot there are a lot worse governments on the African continent than in Ethiopia, and although the country has faced some allegations of human rights abuses, that sort of thing, things work pretty well there for the most part.
So, Robin, obviously we will be staying tuned, but the Canadian government is aware of the situation, a relatively good relationship between Canada and Ethiopia, and a good relationship between the two prime ministers, which might help here if needed. Robin?
Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa.